Ever wondered how a simple baby's room could destroy someone's peace and expose the true face of an HOA tyrant? It all started the day my wife and I moved into our new dream home. She was 8 months pregnant, glowing like sunlight, and had spent every free moment designing the perfect nursery for our first child. Soft blue walls, white trim, a tiny cradle by the window, and little stuffed animals everywhere. Every time I came home from work, the sight of her painting or humming along to the radio made all the stress of the day disappear. That room wasn't just a project. It was a symbol of hope, of family, of everything we'd worked for. But in our neighborhood, peace never lasted long, not with Karen in charge of the HOA. Karen wasn't just nosy. She was obsessed with control. She could sniff out happiness from 2 blocks away and somehow find a way to ruin it. The first real clash came during an HOA meeting about 2 weeks after we moved in. My wife, ever the sweetheart, stood up near the end of the meeting to share our excitement and mentioned that she'd started decorating the baby's room. She laughed softly and said she chose a calming sky blue color because it reminded her of peace. People smiled, some even clapped. But then came that voice, sharp, cold, and dripping with arrogance. "Excuse me," Karen said, raising her hand like she was the queen of the neighborhood. "Did you just say blue? That color is not authorized in our HOA guidelines." The room fell silent. My wife blinked, confused. "It's just the baby's room. Inside the house, not outside," she replied kindly. Karen folded her arms. "Doesn't matter. The HOA has strict standards for all visible decor, and if your blinds are open, it becomes a visual disturbance." The absurdity of it all nearly made me laugh. I tried staying calm. "Ma'am, it's inside our home. You can't control what color we paint our walls." Karen's lips curled into a fake smile. "We'll see about that." That's when I knew she wasn't just annoying, she was dangerous. Over the next few days, my wife tried to ignore her. She continued decorating, hanging little stars and baby mobiles while humming lullabies. But one night, everything changed. I was in the living room when I heard strange noises outside, like gravel crunching under slow footsteps. I peeked through the window and froze. Karen was standing on our lawn, holding a camera, taking photos of our house. I stormed outside, furious. "Karen! What the hell are you doing?" She didn't even flinch. "Gathering evidence," she said proudly. "Your wife violated HOA color regulations." My fists clenched. "That's our baby's room! Inside the house!" Karen shrugged. "The HOA rules don't specify inside or outside. I'm filing a report tomorrow." Her smug grin made my blood boil. "You're trespassing," I snapped. "Go home before I call the cops." She just gave a mocking laugh. "I'm the HOA president. I can inspect properties whenever I feel it's necessary." She turned and walked off into the night, still taking pictures. My wife saw everything from the window, her hand instinctively on her stomach, eyes full of worry. I tried to calm her, told her Karen was just bluffing, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The next morning, my fears came true. A bright orange HOA notice was taped to our front door stating, "Violation, unauthorized interior color." My wife stood there, speechless. "Is this a joke?" she whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "I was just trying to make a happy place for our baby." That broke me. I ripped the notice off and crushed it in my hand. I promised her I'd take care of it. Later that day, I checked the security cameras, and what I saw made my stomach turn. Karen hadn't just taken photos. She'd actually walked up to our nursery window and peered inside with her phone light on, recording the walls, the crib, everything. She had literally invaded our privacy. That night, I copied the footage onto a drive and called the local police department. The officer who came watched it twice and shook his head. "That's trespassing and harassment," he said firmly. "We'll handle it." For the first time in weeks, I saw relief on my wife's face. I thought maybe justice would finally catch up to Karen, but I was wrong. The next day, she doubled down. She stood outside our home screaming that we were lawbreakers who didn't respect the HOA. A few neighbors came out, confused and embarrassed. I just filmed her, silent, because I knew every second of this meltdown was going to be useful later. The storm had officially begun, and it was about to get ugly. By the next morning, our quiet little neighborhood felt like a war zone. Karen had gone on a full power trip, sending HOA notices to every house on our block just to make her own crusade against us look legitimate. My wife tried to stay calm, sitting in the nursery, rocking slowly on her chair, whispering to our unborn baby that everything would be okay. But I could see the toll it was taking on her. She wasn't sleeping. Her hands trembled whenever she heard footsteps outside. That's when I knew enough was enough. I printed out the security footage stills of Karen standing by our window with her camera light on and went straight to the HOA office. The other board members looked nervous when I showed them the proof. "She did what?" one of them muttered. "That's a clear violation of privacy." I nodded. "You think?" I snapped. "My wife's 8 months pregnant, and this lunatic is stalking her nursery at night." One of the older members sighed and said, "We've been meaning to deal with her, but she's been here for years. She bullies everyone into silence." I leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time someone stood up." That same afternoon, 2 police cruisers rolled into the neighborhood. Karen, wearing her usual smug expression, walked right up to them, thinking they were there to back her up. But when one of the officers asked her name and read her rights, her smile vanished. "Wait, what?" "You can't arrest me," she shouted as the neighbors started gathering. "I'm the HOA president." "Not anymore, ma'am," the officer replied. "You're under arrest for trespassing, harassment, and invasion of privacy." I'll never forget that moment. Karen's confidence melted away as the handcuffs clicked. The neighbors whispered and filmed her as she screamed about how she was just enforcing community standards. My wife watched from the porch, her hand resting on her belly, tears of relief streaming down her face. For the first time in months, our street felt peaceful. A few days later, an emergency HOA meeting was called. Without Karen's intimidation, the members unanimously voted to remove her from the board. Someone even suggested dissolving the HOA altogether. I didn't care either way. I just wanted my family safe. The local paper picked up the story, titling it, "HOA President Arrested for Harassing Expectant Couple." That headline felt like justice. Karen tried to deny everything, claiming the footage was fake, but the timestamps and officer testimony buried her case. She was fined heavily and sentenced to community service plus a restraining order. She couldn't come within 500 feet of our property ever again. Life slowly returned to normal. The baby's room stayed exactly as my wife painted it, blue, peaceful, perfect. When our son was finally born, we brought him home to that same room that had once been the center of all that chaos. My wife sat in the rocking chair cradling him, whispering, "See, sweetie, this is your room. No one can ever take it away." I stood by the door, watching them bathed in soft light, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time, complete peace. A few weeks later, a letter came in the mail. It was from a new HOA committee, apologizing for Karen's actions and assuring us she'd never be part of the board again. I tossed it aside and smiled. I didn't need their apology. The real apology was the silence in the neighborhood, the peace that came after justice. One evening, as I walked past the baby's room, I saw the glow of the nightlight painting soft blue patterns on the wall. I thought back to that first meeting, to Karen's angry voice echoing in the hall, and couldn't help but laugh. My wife looked up at me and said, "You know, karma really does have perfect timing." I nodded, smiling down at our baby boy. "Yeah," I said quietly, "and it paints in blue."